let's just start from the beginning. My name's Sean Bickerton. As Yana said, I'm the BC Director of the Canadian Music Centre. Pleasure to be with you. And as I said, we have enormous regard for the work that Electric Chamber Orchestra does in the way that they champion Canadian music and the way that they champion Canadian composers and foster that next generation of composers. It's very much in consonance with our own mission, which is to bring the music of our composers alive and to champion and to foster that next generation of composers. And we do that in a number of ways. And I'm really excited to be able to share with you all of the ways that Canadian Music Centre works to help and foster and champion composers. However, before we do that, I think it's really important that we begin by acknowledging some very basic truths. And I think I would be absolutely remiss if I wanted to tell you all the wonderful things about the Canadian Music Centre. I can't do that without first acknowledging that the history of composition in Canada cannot be separated from a legacy of colonial barbarity. And it's really important for us to understand and acknowledge that. Those actions of the colonial government and the powers that colonized these lands, were paralleled by a colonial cultural policy of intentional appropriation and theft of First Nations sound and music and song and dance and ritual at the very time that it was criminal for Indigenous creators and performers to perform their own work, to perform their own songs, dance their own dances, celebrate their own rituals and traditions. And at a time when thanks very much. Thanks very much. Yeah, great. That's really helpful. Okay. At a time when sorry. At a time when the country was penalizing those the Indigenous performers and creators. So let's just go to that previous slide, if you don't mind, Deanna, with the mural on the wall of the center, if you can.
One sec, it's just a little bit funny.
All of a sudden it started jumping ahead. The world is against us today.
I should be able to go backwards, you'd think.
Yeah.
Okay, one sec. I will go back in the presentation.
Okay.
Sorry, continue. Especially
no worries.
without my just being distracted.
Yeah, it's okay. It's happening. Okay, so now I've got something that's working for me here too. So what was happening at that time was that the American cultural, are you able to back up just a couple more?
Yeah, I'm just trying. It's a little.
Oh yeah, okay, fine. Sorry. Okay.
Not converting properly to mine for some reason.
Yeah. Okay. All right. It's there's a gin in the works today. At a time when American commercial culture was dominating Canadian culture and was threatening really to overwhelm our cultural identity. And at a time when the Canadian government, which was really a very loose construct, was attempting to form a kind of national identity, they sent all of the composers and they encouraged composers rather to go out and capture sounds that they would that would be seen and felt and heard would help to create a kind of Canadian sound and a Canadian voice. And there was also there was a genuine curiosity, and also in some cases what was felt to be at that time a kind of a noble desire to go out and capture some of and preserve these sounds that were being lost as that culture was being destroyed, and very purposely destroyed. And so there were all these different motivations, some very noble in the minds of the people that were undertaking them, others less noble, and in any case the result was the same. Indigenous music and song and dance were appropriated and stolen in some cases. Now, that's the history and the genesis, and I think it's just important we acknowledge that kind of original sin before I start telling you all the wonderful things that we're doing today. And also it provides a context, and as the Truth and Reconciliation Commission said, there is no reconciliation without truth. And so we begin from a place of truth by acknowledging that original history, and seek to take actions today to overcome that legacy, to form real relationship, to indigenize our spaces, to overcome the negative aspects of that cultural eraser, and help to celebrate and integrate and center Indigenous culture at the center of the literally in our spaces, as we've done here. This photograph that you're looking at right now is a mural that was done by a Coast Salish artist named Carrie Lynn Victor. And it's the reason it's there is that up on the wall to the right above it, to the side, is a mural by R. Murray Schafer of the sun, this beautiful graphic score of the sun. It's a stunning graphic score. And I revere R. Murray Schafer. I think he is one of the most. I revere the iconoclasts. I can't help it. And he was, I think, almost unique in Canadian musical history in the way that he kind of shattered everything that had come before, and changed the idea of what music was and what sound was. That said, he has a problematic and complex relationship to Indigenous culture. Dylan Robinson has a quote of his denigrating throat singers at the very front. It's the first quote of the very first page of Dylan Robinson's book, Hungry Listening, his landmark work that sort of calls Canadian composition to account. And so understanding that legacy, that complex history that R. Murray has with Indigenous culture, I asked Carrie Lynn, I explained to her the entire history of my overview of how I see the history of Canadian composition developing, and R. Murray's complicated history, and I shared all that with her, and then asked her if she would still consider creating a mural for her as a response piece to that, and she loved that idea. And so she created two different options for us. This was one, and it was the one that I loved. I just thought it was so beautifully colorful and vibrant, and it just lights up that our lobby of our building. It literally indigenizes our space, and it's fully visible from the street as people walk by. But she also created another as an option, which was her favorite, which was on the lower left was a conductor, but it was done in a stylized Indigenous way, as an Indigenous conductor, and very stylized, with a kind of mask-like face, in a black tuxedo, holding his baton, looking up to conduct the sun. But I didn't feel we could go with that version because I didn't want the Indigenous voice to be subservient, if you will, to R. Murray. And this way, this has a stronger presence in the lobby. It's more visible, and I thought this did the trick very well. But this is the history that we're navigating as a 21st century organization seeking to champion Canadian music and sound and these extraordinary music creators that are working in Canada today. And some of the ways that we're going about it are to we're triaging our library. There was a project by Norman Strong, Jeremy Strong rather, who researched the entire library of the Canadian Music Centre. I don't know if you can see behind me the shelves. Right behind me is the Barbara Pentland Library we have of about 24,000 scores of Canadian music. And he went through that library back east, and we have 5 versions of that library across the country. This is the BC library here in Vancouver. And Jeremy went to the library in Toronto and went through all of the scores and found about a little more than 240 that had problematic issues with appropriation or title or permission. And so the Accountability for Change Council, the Indigenous Advisory Council have been formed, which are completely independent to our board of directors and independently funded by the Canada Council. And they have just completed a documentary of the process of responding and beginning to fashion a solution to each of these 240 works that will eventually involve other Indigenous creators, families, descendants, and nations in fashioning the contextualization or repatriation or obtaining proper permissions, etc., that are necessary to bring these works back to life, if you will, in the modern day. So those are some of the things that we're doing at the Canadian Music Centre to address that legacy and help us embrace a more vibrant shared future together with our Indigenous colleagues and creators. We also have an Indigenous Artist in Residence program, which is parallel to but slightly different from our Artist in Residence program. I'll talk about that a little bit later. I'd like to acknowledge that there are more than 240 First Nations in BC, which is a land that is 4 times larger than the United Kingdom and 2.5 times larger than Germany, just to put it in some perspective. 240 First Nations working on this province, the lands of this, what is now this province, speaking 30 different languages and 60 different dialects. And we are extremely grateful for the privilege of working, living, and creating on this land. And we are grateful to those nations, in particular right now, the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations, for sharing this land with us. Okay, that's the disclaimer, and it's a really important one that I have to give at the beginning of this talk about how great the Canadian Music Centre is. Yana, if you could, please go on to the next slide. So our mission is to be the catalyst that connects you to the ever-evolving world of Canadian musical creation through 3 areas: performance, education, and promotion. Here in BC, we envision ourselves as a resource center that is completely dedicated to fostering and supporting the vibrant community of creators, practitioners, ensembles, educators, students, and patrons that thrives in BC, in order to help bring the music of our composers to life and to foster the next generation of composers. Let's go ahead to the next slide, Anna, please. We do this in a number of ways. As you saw, there were 3 things: performance, education, and promotion. So looking at performance, last year we offer $1,000 sponsorships to anyone producing a concert that has more than 50% music by BC composers. And that there's a kind of dispensation available where there are Indigenous music creators involved as well. And last year we sponsored 27 concerts in 2023 across 13 centers in this province, which is the largest number of performances we've ever been involved in. In addition, we produce score videos. Last year, we produced, well, so far since COVID, we have produced 160 score videos and counting. And each year, our intention is to produce about another 50 to 75 score videos. And I'd like to play one of those for you right now. Jocelyn, do you have text on your phone? Oh no, that doesn't work, does it? No, just stay in the same screen. Um, if you stop playing, Yana, if you stop playing the and you look at the notes, if you just if you share the presentation without playing it, if you see what I mean, then you should be able to see in the comments a link to a video I'd like to play. So if you share the presentation, the keynote,
All right.
but with it, don't push play.
Okay.
We're gonna have to. This is all a workaround. Yeah, and so click on that previous slide and scroll down.
Okay. I
And
see it.
then click on that link if you would. I'd like to play. This is one of the score videos we produced, I think, last year.
Are you seeing that? Is it doing
Not yet.
Okay. Okay, I'll just have to stop the share and go and share that.
Are you able to?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I just have to share a different window.
Okay.
Is that showing up now?
Yeah, that's great. So this work is Exaudi by Jocelyn Morlock, and this is one of our score videos.
I can't hear anything.
Was nobody could hear that? Is it the sound wasn't sharing? Okay. All right. I'll reshare and see if I can share it with sound. Share screen. As it should share sound. Okay. Okay. Actually, apparently I have to do a plugin for that. So why don't I just put this link in the chat, and then Sean, you can share.
Yeah, actually, if you make me host again, I can make it work. I know what to do.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know why my
No worries. I'm sorry. We'll get there.
Okay, one sec. I'll make you the host, and then here's the link just in case if you need it.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Oh dear God, I do this a million times a year without any trouble. Okay. Let's do this first. Oh, that's what I want to do. Okay. Share and share.
I can also share this with folks after the fact. I can.
No, I have it here.
Perfect.
The question is, will you be able to hear it?
Yeah, and just make sure to share with sound. That was one thing that Apparently my computer needs a different plugin.
Okay. Oh, why it's so minimized?
The a little X in the lower right will make it big.
It's you'd think it would do that, wouldn't you? There we go. Okay. Uh, uh,
You're trying to make it bigger?
I am trying to make
Yeah,
it
so it's
bigger.
in the lower, right, right next to the Vimeo words. You click on the,
Yeah, it's not. I see. Got it. Oh, I see. Okay. No, I don't.
should we just skip this section maybe and then I'll send it out as a,
Yes.
which is unfortunate.
So frustrating. Okay. Well, the beautiful thing about the beautiful thing about these score videos is um, that they make that obviously they have the music right alongside the score, and they're particularly helpful for musicians that are looking to discover content, for teachers that are teaching. I've heard a lot from the faculty up at UBC that they're invaluable, and there are now, I think, almost close to 200 of these available on our video channel, which is at, I'll share the link on screen. Yeah, you can see it at the bottom of the screen, bc.cmccanada.org/video. And there are about 160 score videos there, closer to 200 now. There are 60 music videos that we've created during the COVID. During COVID, we started making that literally the first day of the national shutdown on March 17. Jordan and I immediately started producing 50 unaccompanied music videos featuring a musician who chose a work by a Canadian composer for solo instrument. And our idea was to keep musicians working and also to point a way to other arts organizations of how we could stay alive during the pandemic. And then more recently, this last year, we've just recorded an additional 10 duets music videos. Obviously works for two instruments. But these are works that have never been recorded in many cases and will be available forever through our video channel, free of charge for people to view, and gives people ready access to music they might not otherwise discover. And I think they're extremely valuable. In addition, in our video channel, there are also interviews with leading composers and documentaries on some legacy composers, some of that very first generation. For those of you who are now young and emerging composers, it might not be immediately apparent working here in BC, but there was a time not very long ago when to write music on the west coast of Canada was a little bit apocryphal. It was apocryphal. It was a revolutionary act when Toronto and to a lesser extent Montreal, but really Toronto was the gravitational center of all of the arts in Canada. And these composers started writing music out here that had very different voices. Maria Daskin, Jean Coulthard, Barbara Pentland, Elliot Weisgarber in particular. They all taught and fostered another generation of composers. Barbara Pentland and Jean Coulthard were the two very first teachers hired by the University of BC's music department, as it was then known. It was Maria Daskin's brother Harry that was the chair, and he hired those two women composers as his very first teachers. And I also should comment that those women were working at a time when women were discouraged from composing, Barbara Pentland particularly, and where women had to fight for their place as voices of composition and to be taken seriously in that world by all these serious men, particularly back in Toronto in the day. So we've gone through a complete transformation of that scene, and it's beautiful and vibrant to see. But they were pioneers, and I really I revere both of those women for forging that path out here. So I would encourage you as a research resource, as a way of discovering music, as a way of looking at what other composers have done for similar combinations of instruments, similar types of compositions, to explore our video channel. As I mentioned, so those are some of the ways that we seek to bring our composers' music to life through sponsoring performances and creating score videos and music videos and musical documentaries. Some of the ways that we foster the next generation of composers are the Barbara Pentland Awards program. Barbara Pentland, as I mentioned, was an extraordinary composer. She came from a serialist background. She particularly more really from the Webern school. But she took that and created her own language. She was a rebel and fiercely determined woman, and created, I think, is really one of the most impactful Canadian composers, and certainly one of maybe the two most impactful women composers the country has seen in her time. And she left when she passed away in 2000. She left an endowment to the Canadian Music Centre in BC of $500,000, which is partly why this region remains one of the, well, doesn't remain. It is the most vibrant region. I will just come out and say it. We are the most vibrant region of the Canadian Music Centre in the country. And part of the reason that is true is because of that endowment, which has steady ongoing funding through the years, which has helped us be what we are today. To honor that legacy, when I came to the CMC in 2016, I created the Barbara Pentland Awards, and those were awards of excellence that we provide in partnering with composition competitions around the province, the Langley Music School, at Corleone, for instance, and other organizations. And we also provide Barbara Pentland Awards, partnering with instrumental competitions across the province, the Kiwanis at the BC Music Teachers Association, their piano competition at the International Choral Kataumu up in Powell River. We provide awards that encourage contestants to learn and perform Canadian music in these competitions, and reward them for that with cash prizes and with rewards. So these are some of the ways that we're encouraging young musicians to play and learn Canadian music, and to encourage that next generation of composers. In addition, we provide now $5,000 in scholarships every year, in 3 scholarships: the Murray and Dorothea Adaskin Prize, that Rodney is well aware of, who he was such a good friend to Murray and to Dorothea. And Dorothea set up this endowment with us that now provides a $2,500 prize every year that goes to a graduate student of composition at UBC, SFU, or Victoria, the graduate degree granting institutions in composition in BC. And then we also have the Pentland Prize of $1,500, which is sponsored by Jeffrey Newman, a business professor out at UBC, and the Southern Prize, which was created for women identifying composers, which was created on International Women's Day in honor of Anne Southam, another great Canadian women composer, and is sponsored by Martha Lou Henley, Anne Southam's cousin. as I mentioned, we are actually a public lending library. We have these 24,000 scores in print available for browsing at 837 Davie Street, uh, our, uh, our, our office here in downtown Vancouver. And those scores are free to borrow for up to, I think, 3 months. And we provide shipping to you and back home, back to the library again through Canada Post. And we, um, as one example of the value of this library, it's now all online, so people tend to go more online. But there's something about these physical scores, and we have really extraordinary handwritten scores by Imant Ramanch and Maria Daskin and other composers that you just don't get the same thing when you're looking at them online. And to browse through those and see their calligraphy is just so beautiful. And also these scores are organized by instrumentation. So it's very easy if you're looking for a particular instrumentation, just to go immediately to that section and just browse through, pull it out and look and put back. I think it's a valuable resource. It's less loved today in the online world, but I still have a great reverence for these scores that we have. We in 2016 we created the Maria Daskin Salon, which features the Maria Daskin's Salon Grand Piano, and which is the performance space is that black bit you can see in the background there, and this is the lobby, and that's Rodney in the center, as you can see, and that salon hall is a very small black box performance space, 45 seats, but it's animated with all these amazing, like it's extremely affordable, all kinds of small ensembles and artists work in there. It's we have artists in residence that are granted up to 20 days of time in the salon, working with there in seclusion. We give them the space to just work in quietly during the day. They have all of the resources that we have available, the technological resources and the library, and the piano, and recording equipment, etc. And then we also have an Indigenous resident artist residence program, as I mentioned, which provides some additional supports. And that space is available during the daytime when it's not being used for $10 an hour. It's the least expensive rental space in the city, and it's more in the evenings because we have to have an associate that is paid Vancouver's living wage to come in and staff the space and secure it. But it's a vibrant, beautiful street level, completely accessible performance space. And washroom right off the lobby. So it's a unique little venue in the city, completely unique. I love it. If you don't know about Center Pulse, you should know about Center Pulse. Center Pulse is our bi-weekly, our newsletter is a bi-weekly newsletter. It has all of the concert listings. It's the go-to listing of concerts of new music in the province of BC. It's chock-a-block with composer opportunities, the latest CD releases, the latest music, the latest score and music videos that have been produced by the whole community. It is all about information about what's going on, and particularly the composer opportunities. It's rife with those, and it's the place to go. And those composer opportunities are international in scope and are very well researched and curated by our resident composer, Jordan Nobles, who produces Center Pulse for us and produces our score videos for us. And it's free and really full of the most relevant information to new music practitioners and creators in the province. Anybody want to guess what this is about? This is a unique, weird service we provide called our music print and bind service for composers. It's a completely lovingly hand produced binding and printing service for scores and parts. And ours are the best in the world. We print on the very best paper, very good quality stock, which is donated to us by CPAC. Every part and score is hand bound by someone who is a composer or a musician. The pages are easy to open and turn. They lie flat on the stand. They're easy to turn when you have to turn quickly. They last. They're durable. We also have coil bindings where necessary. And each one is hand assembled and hand bound with medicinal tape, which is the best tape for this purpose. A previous composer here discovered, and then bound with tape or with a heavy bound tape or coils, depending on the thickness of the score. It's a loss leader for us. We offer it at a discount. It's a beautiful service, and the best ensembles in Western Canada turn to us for printing, and so I urge you to keep that in mind if you're ever submitting parts to a competition or to a readings, the Gene Coulthard readings here in Vancouver with the symphony, or the Hugh Davidson readings in Victoria, for instance. Everybody gets their parts done here because the musicians and the ensembles love them.
And just FYI, sorry if I could add to
Yeah.
that.
Oh, please do.
All of the I can attest to the wonderful quality of the CMC bindings and preparation, and each of the Composer Inc. Participants will receive a score of their completed piece created by CMC as a gift from us.
Yes. That's amazing, Allegra, and we're so happy to partner with you for this program. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the Toronto division, the Toronto region, Ontario region, their home in Chalmers House in downtown Toronto. And we have the Barbara Pentland Library. They have the Attari Mazzoleni Library. I didn't know it was named that. And that's where CMC Canada is. So I'm CMC BC, everything within our borders, I'm responsible for and answerable for. And but the rest, the overall country, the national organization is headquartered in Chalmers House in Toronto. And I'm going to share so I'm going to look at some website pages in a second, but I just want to check my notes and make sure that I'm not missing anything critical here. I think the most important thing to know about CMC Canada as opposed to CMC BC is that they curate and are responsible for the online library and store of all of our composers' music. They oversee the process of who becomes an associate composer through the National Composers Committee. And they operate our award-winning recording label, Center Discs, which has produced almost 300 recordings, released 300 CDs since its founding in 1981. It's the only label completely dedicated to Canadian music in the world. And it's that online store and and library for loans and for rentals and purchases that is one of the most valuable services to associate composers, and that's where the real value is. And I also should say that this is also the other great value that we offer as an organization to composers is legacy. We are composers' legacy into the future. All of the music of Barbara Pentland is still available because it's here on these shelves and it's in our online library and store, and will be as long as the Canadian Music Centre exists, which will go on, into eternity, one hopes. And we also here in BC operate a digital archive, which I neglected to mention. It is really an important part of what we do, and I'd like to show you. I'd like to show you that archive. What do I do here? Yeah, stop share, and then share. Where is it? There we are. So can you see that digital archive screen? And why is that? Okay, I know. Oh. All right. Oh, sure. I will get that playing and I will call that up in advance.
I popped it in the chat too for folks to look up.
Okay. Because what I'd really like to do is to share with you what an extraordinary resource this is. And I'm just going to set it up in advance for us to look at. Okay. And where's Marlock? Let's do. Okay. Okay, now I'll share that with you. There, can you see that? If you'll notice, I can't see, but this is all of the artifacts in our online digital archive of anything to do with performances of Jocelyn Morlock in the province of BC or outside of the province of BC. And you'll notice that under the content column, there's commentaries, reviews, publicity, there's photographs, there's newspaper articles, there's reviews, there's bios, there's links to recordings, links to videos. If you are interested in the music of a Canadian composer, everything of a Canadian composer working and living here in BC, I should say, or who has, this is the greatest resource, and this online digital archive is unique to BC. With any of these composers, what I was going to do is just go through a few with you live, but I'm unable to do that for some reason. The sofa, what are they called? Sophons, I think. Is anybody else watching Three Body Problem on Netflix? The sophons are preventing me from accessing this level of technology now somehow, so I've been restricted. But anyway, despite them, this gives you some sense. And there are several hundred composers that are in here, and we are literally intaking boxes. We are just last week we got, I think, 12 boxes from Imant Raminch of his scores and Fond, his archive, that we pay associates, two composers that are working on a weekly basis to input more and more into this digital archive. I think when I started, there were something like 12,000 artifacts in that archive. Today, there are closer to 26,000. It's remarkable resource for research, and I encourage you to check it out because there's a lot of really interesting, quirky, weird, fun things in there. So I just wanted you to see that. And now I think what I'd like to do is share a few websites with you, and that may be challenging, but let's just try. Let's see, associate composer. Yeah, let's do that. Oh, I know, I can. That's also in my presentation, so maybe we should do that first. Yeah, let's do that first. Okay, so yeah, there. All right, so what I wanted to try and share with you is a sense of the scale of benefits that are available to you and the resources that we make available. In BC, our idea is that everything we have in our space, we want to make available to people to help them create Canadian music, rehearse Canadian music, launch CDs, put on concerts, reward people for playing Canadian music. We want to do everything we can to foster this whole ecosystem and nurture it. On a broader scale, nationally, to become an associate composer, here are some of the various benefits that CMC Canada National offers. And let's see, yes. And somehow now my mouse has disappeared. You know, I teach online at CAP. Harmeet, how many times have I done this online? Like zillions of times. I've been doing this since 24 years. I've never had this concatenation of problems in one presentation to anyone. It's just, Allegra, I'm so sorry. But anyway, we prevail, we continue. So I'm going to see, can I make it stop? I can't make it stop, and I can't, what happened? There. There's always a way to beat the machine. So what I was going to do was to go to the application page and go through it and everything, but I don't think I can do that. So I'm just going to call up where you apply. How are we doing for time? Pretty good. Become an associate composer, join today. I'm going to share that screen with you. Eligibility requirements, that's what I'm going to show you. There, I'll share that screen with you, sorry. There, good, share.
And
Okay, can you all see that? Yeah. So here are the eligibility requirements as they stand today, and I want to comment on these. These have evolved at least every year since I joined the organization 7, almost 8 years ago. And now they seem to be evolving twice a year every time we have a jury. As Rodney knows, every time we hold a jury. So the process works that someone applies to become an associate composer. There's I believe there's a small application fee, which is refundable. And then that application comes to us here in BC, if you live in BC, and we convene a jury of BC composers, of peers, to evaluate the application. Every time we convene a jury, some composer, some applicant completely is outside the box, and we have to have a completely new discussion about what really these instructions mean, and we've revised them continually ever since. And we're in the process of making a major revision for them too, because the challenge for us is we were an organization founded on exclusion. That was our definition. We got to decide who was in the in club of Canadian composers and who was out. And unsurprisingly, the first group of people who made those decisions were a group of white men in Toronto. That's how it started. So here we are today in the 21st century, the next century, trying again to overcome that legacy and become an organization based on inclusion, supporting the community. And yet then what is the standard? And a colleague and I in the organization, Joseph Glazer, who's also a composer, he's the Ontario director, we sent a memo to the Composers Committee with a headline in block caps, very large, are we going to have a standard or not, question mark, because that really is the fundamental question. And I think the way we're leading is that as an organization, we must have a standard for the printed music that we rent and sell, and we must have a standard for our recording label. How we define that, I don't know. But I think we're moving beyond having any kind of standard for membership in the Canadian Music Centre because we'd actually like practitioners and ensembles and everybody in the new music community to be part of the Canadian Music Centre. And so then we support that entire community. How that all shakes out in reality, I'm not quite clear because there's a great deal of prestige to being an associate composer of the Canadian Music Centre, and we don't want to dilute that prestige. By the same token, it's weird in the world we're in right now, where we are all focused on inclusion, to have a standard that by definition excludes. So we're working on that, and we're looking at what they're doing with music and sound, or sound and music in the UK, and what they're doing in Australia, and we're using those as the two models that we're kind of working our way towards. And I'd be interested in your comments on that. So that gives you a brief, overview. Our website is bc.cmccanada.org. The national website is cmccanada.org. We publish articles. I'll show you the most recent article. That'll be my last share with you. Okay, BC. Was it? Oh yeah, that was good. I'll share that with you, and then we'll take some questions. So that is one of the latest news articles we published, and these are also featured in Center Pulse. And this was about the latest orchestral readings, the Hugh Davidson readings that Rodney curated in Victoria, the Victoria Symphony orchestral workshop we sponsored with the Okanagan Symphony up in Kelowna, and prizes that have been awarded to the scholarships that were just awarded to grant to students at UBC for their graduation in April. That's the UBC composition class right there, all together on the stage. So that's a little bit about the Canadian Music Centre. Sincere apologies for the technical challenges that made it hard to have a more interactive experience that I wanted to share with you. But I appreciate you taking time out of very busy days to spend some time with me and let me rattle on about the Canadian Music Centre, which I love, and our composers, whom I adore, and happy to take any questions.
I have no questions, but
Rodney, you're bound to have a question.
I don't have a question, but I do have a sincere thank you, not only for this presentation, but also for the work that the Canadian Music Centre in British Columbia does. The innovations, the intelligence, the compassion, which has been replicated when observed by other centers in the country. Every time I hear you speak, I learn something new that I was not aware that the center does. There's simply so much in terms of what you do to assist us and to elevate us. So as a composer in British Columbia, I want to thank you.
Oh, thank you, Rodney. That's very nice. Thank you.
And I would echo that the CMC has been a supporter of Allegra since the very beginning, and everything from supporting our music prep to promoting our stuff in Center Pulse, to our first recording is out on Center Discs, Masquerada. And then also for myself, like I said, when I'm programming, that's one of my first stops as far as researching composers and instrumentation, and or giving Jordan a frantic call and seeing what he can help with. And so that's been a tremendous resource. So for composers who are not yet part of the CMC, I'd really encourage you to submit your materials to be considered, because that's one of my first stops, and there's so many composers that I've discovered through CMC that I wouldn't know about. It just gives you a wonderful platform. As you can see, very comprehensive. You can add a lot of info on your stuff. Yeah, and that reminds me, I have to get you some information on Center Pulse and all kinds of things. So it's good to jog my memory as well.
Good. Okay. Well, Lavinia, very nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Harmeet, it's lovely to see you again. I didn't realize you were there, and I'm so happy that you are. That's a perfect place for you to be, and that's great experience for you because they're right at the cutting edge of what everyone is doing. And Rodney, always a pleasure. And Jana, thank you very much for the opportunity and for the amazing things that you do. Because if we're talking about innovation in this space, Allegra is completely revolutionary in the way you have championed women and women composers and women practitioners, and absolutely needed in this sphere, and creating safe spaces and all of the things that you've done in the social justice area, I think are just so exemplary. And then above all of that is the extraordinary artistic excellence and integrity to everything that you do. So
Thank you so much. I think I might have spoken over Lavinia. Did you have a question or a comment? No, I just wanted to make sure.
No, I just wanted to say that I really did learn a lot from this presentation. I'm so thankful for this opportunity. I've been an associate since 2009, but I didn't know about a lot of these. I just became a Prairie Board member, and I'm learning and
terrific.
So excited to hear about the printing, binding services, and thank you, Allegra, for providing that opportunity for us.
Yeah, no,
Incredible.
absolutely. They're beautiful. I love my CMC scores. Wonderful. Thank you so
Terrific.
much, Sean, for
Okay,
all that you brought to the table. We really appreciate it.
great. Happy to be here. Thanks a lot, Allegra. Thank you very much. Okay.
Everyone.
Bye, Anna. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.